Thank you, John, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for having invited me to this conference. I think it's a very, of course, honored to be the first speaker, and I think you've chosen a very important subject. The reason I'm saying that is that we, as policymakers, right now focus very much on the completion of the banking union. This is very understandable. But clearly, we of course also have to look beyond that, looking beyond fixing the problems of the financial sector today, and looking ahead to the financial service sector of tomorrow, where electronic payments and mobile payments will play an even greater role than they do today. So in that context, we of course need a well-functioning payment services market. And a conference just like the one you organize here today is important input to this debate and to this development. Now, it's of course not for the legislator to create new means of payment. That's something which should be left to industry and be driven by market demand. What we believe that the legislator could and should do is to ensure that we have an enabling framework in place that allows payments to develop further, ensure that they are carried out in an efficient way, and not least a safe way, making sure that we have a high standard of payment security. Now, that particular point is very important. As many of you would know better than I do, we see the rate of payments on the internet increasing very rapidly. That's a good thing. But at the same time, what many consumers point out as their absolute number one concern is security of payments. And clearly, every time people do a payment online, type in their credit card number, they are very afraid and aware of the risk of theft and the risk of fraud. So this is clearly something where we need to be very, very vigilant, and where legislation can very clearly help. Next to the payment security issue, we also have a true internal market dimension. Electronic payment solutions are at a very different stage of development in different member states. These kind of payments don't always work cross-border. If this is a choice of customers or consumers, then that's of course not a problem. But I think that as many of us who have tried to shop online have noticed, sometimes you cannot access a certain site, you cannot use a card issued in your home country when trying to buy goods on a site domiciled in another country. And clearly, the different arrangement of security around those online payments vary a lot between different member states. Another example is mobile payments. There are many parts of the world where using your mobile phone to pay is an everyday exercise. I dare to bet that everyone in this room has a smartphone, but I also dare to bet that rather few of you use them for a kind of daily use for payment. Reality is that today mobile payments do certainly not work on a cross-border European level. There are interesting regional initiatives, but sometimes the mobile payments don't even work across a country. And of course, for this to really have added value, these kind of payments have to be interoperable, being able to be used all over Europe and at least within a full country. We in the Commission regularly receive questions and letters from citizens who have tried to use their mobile phone to buy a bus ticket or pay a parking place in another member state, and it just does not work. So this is not what we would call a true internal market for payments. In a true internal market for payments, a Belgian tourist in Spain should be able to use his mobile phone when paying his parking. A Croatian citizen buying goods on an Irish internet site should be able to use his domestic card. And today that we just have to accept that we are not yet there. These difficulties are sometimes linked to specific consumer protection legislation in a country, and they can be justified. But what we realize very often is that the barriers we see here actually is something that could be removed relatively easy by means of appropriate legislation. And the EU legislators have taken action in recent years. First of all, with SEPA, which is a very important step towards the completion of a true single payment area in Euro. Some of you will have noticed that the Commission recently proposed to grant a 6-month transitional period during which banks can continue to process non-SEPA compliant direct debits and credit transfers. We deem this very necessary in order to ensure legal certainty in the market and avoid any disruptions in payments, given that the latest statistics showed quite clearly that whilst the migration rate towards SEPA is rather high in certain countries, it's very far from 100% in others. And as you know, we had a legal deadline of 1st of February when all payments have to be SEPA compliant. Regardless of this transition period, I think it's fair to say, though, that SEPA has already changed the way we look at payments and look at the world. Many of you will remember the times where a transfer of 100 euros from one country in Europe to another would take 4 days and cost you 24 euros. Those days are long gone, and more importantly, the younger generation look at payment through SEPA eyes already. So I think this is a very good example of how legislations can help to bring about changes in attitude, but also, of course, very concretely changes on to how payments are actually carried out on the ground.